Well, if I was as unbiased and impartial as I could possibly be in this morning's predictions, brace yourself because I'm going to be the complete opposite right now because I am absolutely buzzing after that performance and that result. Let's be honest, it wasn't exactly the best game to watch, but all that matters at the end of the day is Manchester United's six-season search for a major trophy is over. Erik ten Hag wins his first trophy at the first possible opportunity. Second, if you include the Bangkok Century Cup from pre-season. But obviously we don't include that. This was, of course, the first major trophy of the season. The League Cup is Manchester United's, and we'll touch on what that means in a moment. But we'll do our usual review. We'll talk about the game first and my thoughts on that. And then we'll talk about the long-term effects of this result and what it could mean going forward. And yeah, like I said, my first thoughts are that the game wasn't particularly a great watch. It was a bit scrappy at times. I mean, off the back of that Tottenham-Chelsea game, which felt more like a fight at times, this almost started in the same sort of manner. My big concern in the starting lineup was when I saw Diogo Dalot instead of Wan-Bissaka, and we'll touch on Wan-Bissaka's second half performance when we get to it, but that was my one slight concern, and my fears were realised quite early on when Dalot picked up a yellow card after just 8 minutes, and it felt like that was the wrong decision. I know long term he sees Dalot as his main right back. He's obviously much better going forward than Wan-Bissaka, but when you know you're coming up against St Maximin, it always feels like the smart play just to play Wan-Bissaka to be on the safe side. And that was my one concern about the first half. Yet again, we started very slowly. Newcastle had a few half chances without really creating anything significant. Pretty much the story of their entire game, to be honest. But after that first initial burst from Newcastle, we started growing into the game. And then the half chances started coming our way. A couple of chances for Weghorst where he probably could have done better. Karius forced into some comfortable but still necessary saves. I said this morning about testing him out early. I actually thought Karius had a really good game, and I can't pin any blame from a Newcastle perspective on anything that Karius did. I think he did his job to the best of his abilities. Then the first key moment of the game happened in the foul on Marcus Rashford. Now, for the first 30 minutes of the game, I thought Rashford was very reminiscent of his performances of last season. It looked to me like he wasn't fit. Obviously, we knew he was going into this game after the injury he sustained against Barcelona. And he was, like I say, it was reminiscent of last season where he looked like he wanted to play, but he didn't look like he could be bothered to get as involved as he normally is. He wasn't like actively trying to get on the ball. He wasn't driving at defenders every time he got the ball. And when Bruno Guimaraes hit him and he hit the floor, it just felt like, and he started holding his shoulder, it was like, oh, here we go. He's going to go off, and, you know, he clearly didn't want to be there. But obviously, after the goal went in, he picked up his performance, and from that point onwards, he was absolutely fine, and then was obviously heavily involved in the second. But we'll talk about that incident first, because there's a lot of debate about whether or not it should have been a foul from Bruno Guimaraes on Marcus Rashford. Now, obviously, biasedly, if that's even a word, I think it's a foul on Rashford, but even from just a standard football perspective, I think it's a foul for this reason and this reason only. For a shoulder-to-shoulder tackle to be considered a fair challenge, in my opinion, both players need to be competing for the ball. And what happens in this situation is Marcus Rashford is scared. I can't think of the word. He is faced up Kieran Trippier, I think it was. It might have been one of the centre-backs. I don't know. But he's taken the ball and he's pushed it past that centre-back. And he is then trying to make the sprint past that player to then go after the ball. And it's at that point that Bruno Guimaraes has then come across and taken him out with the shoulder tackle. So for me, Bruno Guimaraes has no intention of playing the ball. He has no intention of even winning the ball with that challenge. It is just a targeted attack on Rashford, and that is why, in my opinion, it should be a free kick. And I know some Newcastle fans, I was watching the game with a Newcastle fan who thought it was never a foul because it was a shoulder-to-shoulder tackle. But for me, that's why it's a foul, because Bruno has not made any attempt to play the ball. He has literally just played Marcus Rashford with a strong challenge, and for me, that is a foul. And then the cross comes in, and that man again, Casemiro, I mean, I said before, I could spend an entire video talking about Casemiro, but as far as I'm concerned now, Casemiro is player of the season, end of. And Marcus Rashford and Erling Haaland can score 100 goals between now and the end of the season, and Casemiro is still my player of the season. What he has done for this football club in the last 6 months on the field is absolutely incredible. And he won't win Player of the Season because we all know Haaland's going to win that. He may not even win Manchester United's Player of the Season because of everything Rashford has done. But without any shadow of a doubt, Casemiro is the signing of the season from any team in any league, as far as I'm concerned. The impact he has had on this football club is second to none from any player. He has transformed the way that we play in terms of our midfield and our defensive outlay. And obviously Ten Hag needs to take credit for that as well. And don't worry, we'll get to him. But on the field, there has not been a player who has had a bigger impact on a team than Casemiro this season. And the fact that he has taken that level of performance, taken it to a League Cup final, and on top of that, scored the goal that set us on our way. Set us on our way to winning the game. For me, that ends it, as far as I'm concerned. Like, maybe if Haaland scores the winning goal in the last game of the season for City to win the league, or he scores the winning goal in the Champions League final, then maybe Haaland can steal that title back away. But for me, Casemiro is just locked in. Definitely signing of the season, and as far as I'm concerned, overall player of the season as well. From that point on, again, game gets a bit scrappy. Not really a lot going on, and then all of a sudden the ball breaks to Wout Weghorst, slips the ball into Rashford, he drives at Botman, and it's a really unfortunate goal. It has to be said. There is nothing Botman can do about it. There is nothing Karius can do about it. But Rashford, he's either scuffed the shot, or he's crossing the ball and it bobbles up off Botman. Karius has gone low for the initial thing. It spins up and over him. He gets a hand to it, but isn't enough to keep it out, and it's 2-0. And unfortunately, that's just what happens in big cup finals. You need an element of luck to win these games, and that element of luck went to Manchester United in this situation, and at 2-0, the game was virtually over. Second half, Ten Hag put on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, which was an absolutely spot-on correct decision. And if it wasn't for how well Casemiro played in the first half and then continued to play that well in the second half, Wan-Bissaka was man of the match for me. His second half performance was absolutely unbelievable. He did not put a foot wrong. Up against one of, if not the best one-on-one dribbler in the Premier League, who rinsed Dalot 4 or 5 times in that first half. Wan-Bissaka saw St Maximin off. He did not get past him once. And they put Jacob Murphy on to try and stretch him for pace. Didn't matter either. He was immaculate defensively. And for anyone that was questioning Wan-Bissaka last season and saying he needs to be sold, but firstly in the summer, and then there were still people saying he should be sold in January. I hope those people have now woken up and realised how good this guy is and how important he can be in big games for Manchester United. I have always stuck by Wan-Bissaka. I will continue to stick by Wan-Bissaka because he is the best one-on-one tackler, I'm going to say, in world football right now. I don't see anyone getting past him, and even the odd few that do, he still manages to get back and block them. So that second half performance from Wan-Bissaka was immense. Obviously, the game continues on a little bit longer. It looks like Newcastle are starting to get back into it. They're piling on the pressure. There's a 10-15 minute period where they had something like 85% possession and 5 shots on goal, but the rearguard action, those players we talked about after the Barcelona game, Casemiro, Varane and Martinez once again, essentially meaning that De Gea wasn't even forced to make saves. They just defended so well, and Newcastle, try as they might, could not break us down. And then we started hitting them on a couple of counter-attacks, and it was almost as if those counter-attacks then put Newcastle off overcommitting too far, because they knew at 3-0 the game was absolutely done and dusted. Marcel Sabitzer came on, Scott McTominay came on. I thought they did fantastically well as well. Weghorst went off with Fred, who was one challenge away from getting sent off, and they did their jobs fantastically as well. On and on and on the game went. Bruno had another chance, which he missed once again, like the Barcelona chance. I actually thought Fernandes didn't particularly have a great game today, but I think that was just due to the fact that it was a scrappy game where he couldn't really express himself to his full potential. But it could have been more. That's the good thing about it. It could have been more. It wasn't. It ends 2-0. And Manchester United end their 6th season wait for another major trophy. Now, what does that mean going forward? Obviously, the players will have this evening, I imagine, to celebrate the result. But we'll be straight back on it tomorrow morning. Best be sure of that. Ten Hag will not want these players to switch off by any stretch of the imagination. There is a massive game in the FA Cup at home to West Ham on Wednesday evening, and we need to be ready for that. We need to get through that, and then we're going to Anfield on Sunday. So, no rest for the wicked, but that is exactly what we want. I'm sure I've put something cheesy on the thumbnail that says 1 down, 3 to go, but genuinely, that could be something that is achievable this season. Now, obviously, we have to rely on Arsenal and Man City to drop points, and we need to win nearly every game for the rest of the season to actually win the Premier League. That is the absolute least likely trophy we're going to win this season. But to even think that we're in and around a potential title race at this point in time, given where we were this time 12 months ago, even given where we were after the first 2 games of this season, that alone is an incredible achievement. But to be sitting here as League Cup winners, going into an FA Cup game where if we beat West Ham, we've got a pretty decent chance of winning the FA Cup. I think realistically only Man City are a team that should cause us any real problems in terms of winning the FA Cup. And we've dealt with arguably the best team in the Europa League already in Barcelona, albeit Arsenal are still in the Europa League, but their priority will definitely be winning the Premier League, so they could end up slipping up in the Europa League to, for the sake of winning the Premier League. It's what they did in the FA Cup. They rested their main players against Man City in the FA Cup because the priority for them is the Premier League. So I think there is a genuine good chance that we win the Europa League. I think there is half a good chance that we win the FA Cup, and there is still a slim chance we could potentially win the Premier League as well. But we said it after the Barcelona game. The new era is here. Erik ten Hag is the man, and I am so pleased that we have managed to get him in as Manchester United manager. And whatever can be said about the board and all of that lot over the last few seasons, they got one thing absolutely right, and that was appointing this man in charge of this football club, because everything he does right now seems to work in game. There's been some questionable starting lineup decisions over the last few weeks, which I've touched on, but certainly in game, he is a tactical genius. Every single in-game decision he makes seems to pay off, be it moving someone in and out of the team, making substitutions at the right time, the way he talks to the players, the way he encourages the players. Everything about him just screams genius, but also honour and respect. And I can't ask for a better manager right now. I would say there's probably not a more informed manager than Erik ten Hag in world football right now, with the possible exception of, you'd have said Eddie Howe up until a couple of weeks ago, and there's a couple of others that have done well abroad right now, but I could not ask for, I would not want any other manager in charge of Manchester United right now other than Erik ten Hag. So yeah, I don't really know what else there is to say. Obviously, as always, feel free to leave your comments on what you feel the game was like today. Let me know about your thoughts on the challenge on Rashford. Should it have been a free kick? Could Fred have been potentially sent off for 2 yellow cards? Anything like that. I'm rambling now because I'm still buzzing off the fact that we've won a trophy. But let me know your thoughts as always. Do not forget to like the video if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new around here. I will be back on Tuesday morning for my FA Cup predictions for the first ever time. Thank you very much for watching.